like nowhere else. Thank you for subscribing.
Let's go to the news about what's happening in the world. Hey, well, the situation is intense. Watch out for the change in narrative that Russia will have from now on. Let's listen to the following. Let's go to the audio.
Talking about 2025, the Kiev regime carried out a terrorist attack using 91 long-range strike unmanned aerial vehicles.
According to what Sergei reports, Lavrov accuses Ukraine of an alleged attack which would have been against Vladimir Putin's house. Russia accuses Ukraine of launching 100 drones against Vladimir Putin's presidential residence. This happened in Novgorod. In this area, there is supposedly a house of Vladimir Putin, and well, supposedly 100 drones were launched there. Kiev, Ukraine denies the claim and says Moscow is planning its own attack. This could be a kind of trap, let's say. In the explosive statement he makes, Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov says that, well, they are going to react. Lavrov said the attack would signal Kiev's full shift to state terrorism. Therefore, Moscow would have revised its negotiating stance. And it is presenting a forceful response. That's the narrative, right? That's the approach Russia is going to want to take now. However, when you check the reports from the Ministry of Defense, they have the list of drones that have entered Russia and that they have made public. It completely contradicts the version. The attack or the attacks that happened. Yes, there were attacks against Russia, but it wasn't Nemogrod or Novgorod, it was directly in this area. In Belgorod, right? This is where those attacks happened, which supposedly, according to the Ministry of Defense, were only 41 drones that they also say were intercepted during this night. From yesterday to today, right? Volodymyr Zelensky immediately denied the accusation, insisting that Russia is actually planning an attack on government buildings in the Ukrainian capital. How does Zelensky know that? Because there are already a series of movements being observed on different accounts and on social media. He's showing that there's already an order to attack government buildings. So basically what they're doing is making up the pretext. They plan to attack Ukrainian government offices now. Because they're going to say, you launched drones at Vladimir Putin's house? Like anyone would use those on that house. Those are massive fortresses. And who even knows where Putin is hiding? Probably in some bunker, right? So, clearly this introduces a narrative. This exchange of accusations shows peace is distant. Also, this could be a pretext to avoid reaching any agreement. If there are no agreements, goodbye. What was discussed with Trump or whatever, it's no longer valid and that's the end of it, right? The same strategy that was followed by don't you remember this strategy of the Minister of Foreign Affairs, known as Mr. No, during the time of the Soviet Union? Well, so is that same narrative still being used now? First, you pretend there's a peace dialogue, you stretch it out as much as you can. And when you're about to reach an agreement, you do something to end that negotiation and start all over again, from scratch. And like that, every 6 months, every year, however long it takes, and meanwhile you keep a bunch of countries busy. For what? So they don't do anything? Or so they stop sending weapons to Ukraine? It's purely strategy, right? So watch out, there are going to be changes with this issue. Obviously, this is what's coming now. Another topic that also draws attention and is important to consider is that more images are emerging of what's happening over there in Iran. You can see motorcycle police arriving in large numbers. The people who are protesting are standing there in the streets, obviously to keep them from passing. Sadly, many people are detained, and we know what happens to them. It's a terrible situation that's happening right now over there in Iran. We're also starting to see more images of these confrontations, tear gas and so on, happening between the protesters. Pay attention because the protests have already reached a very intense point with people chanting "Death to the dictator," right? It's already escalating into a movement that's not just about labor issues, but apparently it's now a movement that's completely against the regime, right? So, look, here's the young man who stood there at the bus stop and doesn't move, right? There are the motorcycles. Let's see if we can see them later. There are the motorcycles gathering together. Motorcycles. There's the young man who stands there, apparently trying to block. Well, a lot of brave people there. In Iran, we won't see what happens, but obviously we also know how that regime is. We know how it deals with these kinds of movements. And we'll have to stay alert to what comes in the next few days. Security forces have been attacking protesters with tear gas. They're also coming in on motorcycles, and now there are already images of gunfire. Is that true as well? Well, keep an eye on that matter. Look here at an image published by ViceGrad24. A moment ago, you could hear the following. Take a look, take a look. Whether they're rubber bullets or another type of weapon, we still don't know. There aren't any details yet, but it's clear that they're there. Well, it's already clear that they're targeting the people every day. Who has been upset for a long time. It's just that the regime has always been extremely harsh against the very population that dares to express its discontent. And so there are the people not wanting a change. Or maybe this time will be the final one, or maybe it will be another time when, well, nothing happens. We don't know, obviously, but we'll be paying attention to that. But yes, there is more and more information about this situation, and it seems like, well, it's heading towards something more. There are also some images. Do you remember the image we showed a little while ago in Gaza? Where floods are happening. Well, look, this is in West Bank. This is also in West Bank. Over there in that region, there are more floods. More of this kind of receding waters, right? It's also an important issue besides the cold that's happening in that part of the world. Well, these weather conditions are happening, and they're pretty intense, pretty harsh. Look here, this is one of the areas. It's a shopping center in Iran. Here, you can see it here. I want to hear death to the dictator. Listen up. Well, they're saying death to the dictator, right? That's part of the protest they're holding inside a shopping mall in Iran. I insist. They're losing control. And honestly, I really hope that there will finally be a real change in that country, which is so badly needed. And that is a positive one. That it will be a good change, not a change that ends up causing more problems. But, well, that's part of what's happening right now over there in Iran. Well, if there are more images, we'll obviously be sharing them later on, right? And we'll be analyzing this situation as well. By the way, also, well, within these images that have been circulating from the protests, you can start to see military personnel. They haven't been seen taking action, but they're starting to appear here and there. Hopefully it doesn't escalate against the protests, as that could be concerning. It's also not known if they're military from the forces, what's it called? From the Ayatollah's forces or from the army. The official one that the army has. It's called Iran, which has an army. It has a double army, not the Ayatollah's army. Wait a moment. Yes, at least this has been achieved. Well, we're going to get ready. Let's see if this guy's listening to us. And there too, he can help us with the camera. In the meantime, here's this image. Remember that today there's a meeting between Netanyahu and Donald Trump, a topic we had mentioned to you before. Donald Trump ends the year by meeting with Zelensky yesterday and Netanyahu today. Let's hear what Trump says.
Mr. President, one of us from Channel 12 News, what are your plans regarding Gaza in the next 2 weeks?
We're going to be dealing with Gaza. That's why this very great Prime Minister is here right now. We're talking about Gaza. We're talking about a lot of things. We have about 5 major subjects that we're discussing, and Gaza will be one of those subjects.
Well, we will discuss many topics, says Donald Trump regarding this meeting he has with Netanyahu. Netanyahu doesn't talk about the topic yet. It's a bit like what happened yesterday with Zelensky. First, they introduce themselves in a general way. But later they'll talk about what they're going to discuss. Obviously, they'll talk about Gaza, but they'll also talk about Iran. That is possibly the main reason why Netanyahu is going to the United States. At least that's what is believed, because supposedly he's going to give a warning that there is an alleged preparation by Iran for an attack. Iran needs a way out of this internal crisis we're seeing. It needs a pretext for something that will help calm the population down for a while. Right now, there's a tremendous internal crisis, and maybe a war or maybe some external situation could give the regime of the councils a break. That's why we also need to pay attention to the possible reactions from Israel and the possible reactions from the United States regarding this issue. The so-called maximum pressure strategy of the United States, which began when Trump started it, seems to have worked. It seems to be giving results. I don't know if, let's see if anyone remembers, but at the beginning, during the first month or the first 2 months of Trump's term, we mentioned here that up to that point in the strategy, it seemed to be giving better results. In terms of putting pressure, because you saw that he started with tariffs on everyone. And he started putting pressure everywhere. I was telling you all, the only region in the world that actually had a real negative effect on its economy was Iran. Do you remember when inflation hit 200? At that time, they were just about to go over the edge. With Trump's pressure, inflation skyrocketed. And from there, it was the Ayatollah's nightmare, right? They've struggled with their currency, and just days ago, the rial fell even more. Over there in Iran, right? Besides the currency's fall, which increases their already high inflation, there's also the oil blockade. So the situation for Iran is really tough, and I find it hard to believe it will be resolved soon. Let's talk about what's happening in the United States, where there are some pretty widespread blackouts going on. Let's get into the details. Currently, 383,000 people across various states in the United States are experiencing blackouts. We're talking about Michigan and New York, which are the two states with the most blackouts, but also Pennsylvania, Ohio, New Hampshire, Georgia, Texas, and Virginia, which have had some pretty severe blackouts as well. Let's check power outage to see how many there are. The number has already increased, huh? The blackouts have increased to 395,000 customers, which would be roughly equivalent to between 1.5 to 3 million people experiencing blackouts in the United States. It's an issue that continues to be a problem and is related to the climate phenomenon they're experiencing right now over there in the United States. Just to give you some striking details about what's happening with the weather. Let's discuss the details of what's coming. But be careful with what's happening over there in the United States. Right now, you have to really calculate the effect it's causing. There are 9,000 flights canceled, 9,000 flights canceled just in the United States. I mean, this phenomenon is really hitting hard. So let's get into the details, right? It's a winter storm that's affecting the northeastern United States. As you can see, all of this area, that's where it's hitting, and a lot of people live there. Obviously not. So the conditions and what's coming for Mexico as well, obviously. We're going to talk about it right now, and for South America, for Europe as well, since we're already talking about all of this. But listen, first we start with what's happening right now, and then we'll move on to what's coming. The intense storm has paralyzed the northeastern United States, causing states of emergency, overwhelmed airports, and blocked roads. The fast-moving winter storm hit the northeastern United States between yesterday and today. Actually, it started hitting hard on the 27th, right? According to John F. Kennedy LaGuardia and Newark, considered key for national and international routes, airlines like American Airlines, United, JetBlue, and others had to activate changes without penalties because there were too many problems, right? In Nevada, the rain and snowfall were intense, up to 25 centimeters of snow. For example, in Syracuse, Long Island, and Central Park, New York, they recorded 11 centimeters. This would be the biggest snowfall they've had since 2022. At this time, the authorities in New York and New Jersey declared a state of emergency and asked people to avoid traveling. And they deployed crews during the early morning to clear the highways to combat black ice. Black ice is a very tough condition for road safety, right? Also, well, in response to this, the air traffic collapse shifted to the railway systems on Amtrak in New Jersey, also on New Jersey Transit, and they implemented operational restrictions with reduced speeds and modified schedules on the highways. Temporary bans have also been imposed on commercial vehicles. For example, New Jersey and Pennsylvania have already affected logistics and delayed sensitive deliveries that aren't arriving due to the current conditions. Also, the Atlantic Ocean is currently experiencing what meteorologists call nighttime refreezing. The authorities have been able to, they have to wait until they're given a new flight date, which they haven't been given yet, because it's still not clear when there will be proper flying conditions. Not safe. This event closes the year with an extreme weather episode in the United States. And what's coming next? Well, you'll see how the temperature situation will develop. We see today's image where this front we're looking at is approaching. It's moving closer to the southern United States, and from now until the 31st, it will already be very extensive toward the west and toward the east. But for the 31st exactly, we're going to see very cold conditions in this area. Let's see if we can get closer to this part of the south. Yes, where we're going to see cold temperatures, especially for the 30th and 31st, maybe not freezing, but still very cold for different parts of Texas, New Mexico, Arizona, California, Alabama, Georgia, and everywhere. Not everywhere. The South, even when the South has temperatures, even Florida, which is the Sunshine State, with temperatures as low as 6 degrees, that's cold, right? For that state, it means the North is much worse, right? And we're talking about, for example, in the north of Wisconsin, they're going to have temperatures of 31 minus 21 degrees Celsius in Fahrenheit. For our friends watching in the United States, that's minus 6 degrees Fahrenheit. Yes, it's pretty cold. And for the north, for example, in Minnesota, we're talking about minus 27 degrees Celsius. And in Fahrenheit, that would be minus 16 degrees Celsius. Well, it's already extremely cold, right? And in these areas, snow accumulation is expected. Let's look at the snow accumulation from now until the first week of 2026. Yes, which will be the first week. How will it be from today to the first week? If you notice, we'll be watching. Day 30, 31, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7, right? That would be the first week. That's the first week in the United States. As for snow, maybe even including Mexico, in Ciudad Juarez, there could be some snow. Around those dates, yes, and then the following week, the second week of January, the snowfall will extend much further south, but I won't get ahead of myself. Let's just stick to the 7th. Right? It's more or less these states, for example, even Arizona. Look, in some areas with mountains and snow, especially at certain elevations, there will be snowfall, right? Even though it looks very widespread, this mostly reaches the peaks and high areas. I mean, it's going to be cold. Yes, it's going to be cold. There won't be really heavy snowfall just yet, but in the east, there will be more snow and it will be more intense there. If places like Pennsylvania and New York are already getting snow, imagine how it will be soon, but not in Mexico. What's happening right now and what's coming in the next few days? First, there's a northern front event happening now. Let's look at the details of this event, okay? And how it's affecting Mexico, both Mexico and the United States. Look, from the northeast of the United States, you can see and experience windy conditions right now. In fact, they're close to hurricane level, you know? They don't reach 120 kilometers, but almost about 100 kilometers per hour. The winds are at their strongest right now in some parts of the United States, for example, in the cities near the lakes, right? Towards the entire northeast of the United States, over to the northeast coast, very strong winds are arriving, but these are spreading towards Mexico, towards the Gulf of Mexico. A northern wind is coming and is already entering the country. It's a strong northern wind, but probably not up to 100 kilometers. But look at the report I have here from the National Meteorological Service, the Mexican National Meteorological Service. It says that the gusts can reach up to 110 kilometers per hour, it says. There is a northerly event where the sustained wind is indeed from 60 to 80 kilometers per hour, but the gusts can reach 90 to 110 kilometers per hour on the coasts of Tamaulipas, Veracruz, and the Isthmus and Gulf of Tehuantepec, that is, Chiapas and Oaxaca. Yes, so, well, it's on its way. It hasn't reached the Isthmus yet, but it's heading there. Notice how this phenomenon is going to move toward the south of the country. By tonight, the event will already be moving forward. Look, notice that here you can already see the wind is much more intense. Here you can actually see gusts of 101, 102 kilometers per hour. Look at what the National Meteorological Service says. There it is, 103, 102. Well, this obviously causes strong waves. It can cause electrical problems, blackouts also in Mexico, possibly due to these weather conditions, right? And we can see how it's moving toward the Isthmus and Gulf of Tehuantepec. That's exactly the route where there was a problem with the train, right? Is this problem heading that way now? What is the forecast for the next few days, according to the Mexican National Meteorological Service? First of all, let me tell you that for tomorrow the 23rd, 29th, tomorrow is the 30th, right? Tomorrow is the 30th, and these conditions will remain until January 1st. The next day, tomorrow, Tuesday and Wednesday. Cold front number 25 is approaching and will move from southeastern Mexico to the Yucatan Peninsula, causing heavy and very heavy rains in those regions, the most intense rains. Look at how it's going to be, okay? Towards Veracruz, towards Los Tuxtlas and Olmeca and Tabasco, up to 150 and 250 millimeters of rain, a lot. 250 millimeters of rain, that's a lot of water for these 2 days, Tuesday and Wednesday. So watch out for the rain that's coming to Veracruz, to Tabasco as well. Also towards what's Papaluapan, towards Tehuacan, Puebla, the Sierra Negra, all that area, Tehuacan, Sierra Negra, and all that area. Oaxaca and Chiapas, up to 75 to 150 millimeters of rain. Yes, let's take a good look at the water accumulation. How is it going to be here in this area? But watch out, look, here, you can see it, more or less. But let's look at it until day 1. It's this area, this is the area where the rain activity will be strongest. And Veracruz, Campeche, Quintana Roo, also with heavy rains, by the way. And well, so rain is also expected in Baja California Sur, Hidalgo, and Tlaxcala, but with less intensity. Yes, it's about 5 to 25 millimeters, which is some rain. As I mentioned, the northern event will continue. There will be several northern events tomorrow, and the day after tomorrow it also looks like there will be a northern event. Winds are currently reaching up to 110 kilometers per hour. The waves, therefore, could reach heights of 3 to 5 meters on the central and southern coasts of Veracruz. The waves in Tamaulipas could be from 2.5 to 3.5 meters high, right? So please stay alert about that issue. The weather in Mexico is really crazy, especially between areas like Baja California Sur, Sonora, Sinaloa, Nayarit, Jalisco, Colima, Michoacán, and Guerrero. They're going to have very hot temperatures, between 35 and even up to 40 degrees at the peak, right in the middle of winter. And at the same time, these are also warm areas that we have in Mexico, and many times they stay hot around this time, right? But if you look at this whole area, the entire Pacific coast is going to continue with a lot of heat. Chihuahua and Durango will have the lowest temperatures, even dropping below zero. In the mountains, temperatures could drop to as low as minus 10 degrees. Yes, in the mountains. It will also be very cold in Zacatecas, Tamaulipas, San Luis Potosí, Guanajuato, Hidalgo, Estado de México, Tlaxcala, Puebla, and Veracruz. In high altitude areas, it will be super cold, getting close to 0 degrees around that same day, but at night. No, in areas where it will be much colder, especially in high altitude areas, right? So keep that in mind as well. On January 1st, it will be raining mainly in Baja California and Sonora, but it will calm down in the other regions, right? So on January 1st, keep in mind that the rain will also decrease, so the weather will be more manageable, let's say. It'll be more comfortable. For the first ride, on January 1st, there's not much of a problem. Yes, the temperatures will be freezing in some areas of Chihuahua and Durango, but other than that, it won't be so cold on January 1st. Apparently not. So here it is. This is January 1st with the forecast that's available. And if you look, for example, here where I am in Monterey, the temperatures would be around 12 degrees Celsius. The minimum temperatures aren't bad, right? Well, at least for now, that's what we can see. Let's move on to other matters. Let's talk about other important topics as well. Let's check the comments. How have you been? Thank you, Beatrice Alvarez. How are you doing? Greetings, huh? What does it say? Good. Very good afternoon. How has Odilia been? How has Robel been? Very good. It's a pleasure to see you. Miguel Alejandro, how are you doing? Greetings, Carlos Martinez says. The Russian negotiations are the best strategy to win the war. He says it. A blind man can see it, but if someone doesn't want to see it, they won't. Greetings, Carlos Martinez. How have you been? Great to see you. Thanks for commenting. Blanca Violante 1345 says, in Ontario we have a storm, also breezing rain and strong winds. Greetings to Ontario, and yes, you can see it. Well, does a good part of Canada also have its share of the storm? Yes, that's true, and thanks for reminding us there's a community watching in Ontario. Because sometimes, well, they don't comment as much or there aren't as many of them. I know, but I appreciate that they watch us, including in Canada. Big greetings. The country that watches us most is the United States, especially the Hispanic community. Villanos are already winning by a lot, huh? I mean, the United States is in first place by a lot, and then Mexico is in second place. And then it's split between Spain, Colombia, and other countries too, right? But yes, we were surprised this year. We ended with the year where more people watched us in the United States than in other parts of the world. Look, just this one. I'm very grateful to the Hispanic community in the United States for recommending us so much. I really appreciate it. Thank you to everyone watching in Mexico City and elsewhere. I think the place where the fewest people watch us is here in Monterey. I think there are very few people here who watch us. Greetings to everyone from Monterey and to those watching here. This channel is for all Spanish speakers, right? It's not meant for a specific place, and it just naturally finds its own audience. I imagine there are a lot more Hispanic people looking for news, I imagine. Well, greetings to all the community watching us over there. Thank you. How have you been, Rigoberto? Hello, we have great information here. Thank you. Rigoberto, how have you been? Patty, how have you been? Greetings. He says greetings. How have you been, Patrick? A greeting to Mauro. Very good, Olga. How have you been? Greetings. Greetings to Texas. Very good. Thank you very much. How are things over there? By the way, in theory, it should already be cold. Not just cool, at least it should be a bit cold now, he says. The snow has accumulated, says Miguel, on the insulators of the cables to the towers, causing energy leakage and making the power grid on the main lines go out. That's almost certainly what it is. Greetings, Miguel. Thanks for the information. Very good. Also, there's a comment above. It says, with the military being part of the religious regime, these protests are dangerous for the people who chant those songs, it says. Those two don't make coats for a devastated people or believe anything they say, it says. Miguel, how have you been, Miguel? Greetings. Very good, Rodrigo. How have you been? Very good. Greetings to you too. Who else is around, he says. Okay, well, greetings to the whole community. Thank you very much for joining us, he says. What happened with Russia? Did the clown reach Putin? Well, I think it's more of an excuse. It's just an excuse. The attack, well, it's only Sergei Lavrov who's talking about it. Not even his own Minister of Defense has reported that attack. They have the information and are always first to report where the attacks occurred. And that attack, well, Sergei Lavrov just made it up, which, well, is really just the excuse to break off any possibility of an agreement, right? It really sounds like that, doesn't it? It sounds like, well, yes, that they're using that as an excuse. And with that, well, there's no need to make any kind of, how do you say, agreement with PAN or anything like that, right? That's also, well, interesting, isn't it? And, well, let's stay alert to whatever may come, right? In that sense, they don't come either. I mean, at the end of the day, that's how it is. It's also part of what you do, or the strategies, right? In the end, as they say, diplomacy is war in a tie. Basically, no, I mean, there are situations happening. There's a double war going on, not just a war with weapons, but also a diplomatic war. And in which NATO is involved, in which the United States is involved, in which Iran is involved, in which Russia is involved, obviously not China and other countries, right? Yes, that's also part of what we're going to be experiencing. And well, I'll keep reading comments. We'll stay here a bit, right? We've already had a live stream to keep talking. It's just that this urgent news came up about the announcement made by Sergei Lavrov. And I think it's very important because it sounds like something is about to happen. It sounds like something is coming, right? So, well, we also need to pay attention to that situation, he says. Let's see where it is. He says, Verderi, how have you been? Verderi? Repeat the lies until they believe them. That's what he does. That's what Ilona Donald Trump used to say. You'll tell them anything and they'll believe it. Is that right, Verderi? So they keep, let's say, this idea of, well, yes, maybe of creating a narrative, right? Until at some point, well, that narrative becomes real, so to speak, in quotation marks. Obviously, it's part, maybe, of a strategy that I was telling you about the other day from this man called El Señor. No. The truth is, he has a story, even enough to make a documentary about it. The truth is, this man's case is very interesting because he's the one who is, let's say, the father of Sergei Lavrov. Professionally speaking, let's say, not in the sense of being his biological father or anything like that, but he's the one who shows him how to move forward. How to create a diplomatic environment that's favorable and very aggressive toward the interests that, in this case, Russia might have. Part of the strategy he mentions is that any small diplomatic weakness that this one has, any country should take it totally, right? I mean, it should be taken as completely no. I mean, no, not just halfway like, oh, let's all get along. No, that's not the strategy. The strategy is basically to dominate the opponent. Basically, that's what this character is proposing, right? So, yeah, it's pretty crazy, but that's how they handle it, right? That's how this whole situation has been going on for a while now, right? Well, it's part of, let's say, the style. It's part of what they've created, right? And they keep it going, right? I mean, they keep it going and we'll probably keep seeing it for a long time. I don't think that's going to change much, right? But anyway, let's keep reading. Comments? How have you seen the end of the year from an economic point of view? I mean, we see how this one has surprised me. Those who are following the topic, right? And I know there are already several who are following the Standard & Poor's 500 topic. Yes, it's very interesting. Because the 500 companies are seeing something. At least in terms of profits, I don't know if in employment or even the profit from the last quarter. I don't think that's all. That's why I think there's something else they're seeing in which it doesn't allow a drop. Notice, I mean, they're not only just shy of the all-time high, if they haven't already reached it, but also look at this. It's a rebound, a correction, and it bounces, and then the next correction was higher than the previous correction. Notice, this is a Y, and with a lot of volume. No, I can't see it here, but the volume, look, the buying volume is huge. Yes, few are selling, many are buying. So what does this mean? Well, it's a very positive sign. Let's look at January. But after so much back and forth with some of Trump's strategies, at least this part seems at least that the client companies are liking it, right? Although there are some that not so much. The companies haven't done so well, have they? This, in fact, in quotes, because look, this is NASDAQ, these are the tech companies, and there they are. Well, the companies, there's Google, Facebook, all of them. Look at where Nasdaq is right now. It's up, isn't it? And that's despite many problems, whether with the chips, RAM, or any other issues. Look, in fact, I think right now, at this point, we're at a historic high. Yeah, we're at a high. Haven't you noticed? We're seeing it live right now. Let me step back since the Nasdaq has been around for a long time. I don't remember if there was ever a time with a higher price than this, but I don't think so. No, we're not at an all-time high live right now. I hadn't even noticed. That's interesting. Yes, I'm keeping track of it, but I'm not watching it all day, right? So that's crazy, that's crazy. Because this is very interesting for a year-end close. It's not normal. They're seeing something, they're analyzing something. Let's stretch it as much as we can to see how far where this high goes. There it is. This is today, December 29th. Yeah, and look where it is. It hasn't corrected yet because it had a huge surge since December 4th. The correction was minor and pump continued rising strongly. It doesn't want to. It's dependent and won't correct itself. It's still going, but now it has less volume. So maybe if a correction comes in these days, yes, it could happen. It already has volume. It could be, but it's not. I mean, look, check out the volume I hadn't seen. The buying volume. Look, the buying volume. I mean, the people who are investing, it's high, and the selling volume is low. Just a few people are selling. Yeah, if the red volume line spikes, he says. Ah, Canyon, they're already starting to sell hard, and well, a correction is coming, but not yet. It's not 127 yet. It's about to close. There's 1, 2 left, and now it's 9 years. That's high. Now the 4 are over. Right now? New York 227, 337. They still have 90 minutes before closing, and the price doesn't seem to be dropping, right? So it's holding strong up there, really high, very elevated Nasdaq, getting close to breaking towards $100. No, and well, these are interesting signs, right? At least, right? He says, hey, how have you been? He says, the silver, right? He corrected 10 last night, and the gold, 5. Ah, Canyon, let's see, let's check it out. I don't have to. Ah, Canyon, very tough. The correction too, very tough. Thank you, right? Huh? There it is, look, strong. The correction was, that's the gold. Watch out. This is really good. This too, strong correction. Such a strong correction isn't normal either. Look, there was a similar correction suddenly and repeating patterns. This similar correction happened in October. You notice a similar percentage drop? Yeah, more or less. In fact, this one was a bit bigger and then it did this and went back up. Could it be that it peaked here, here, here? It starts to become a wick. What we're seeing here, this thin, small line is a wick. So there are buys there. They're starting to buy there enough to raise the price. Who knows? Who knows? Look, we would have to check the gold volume. It's a bit different because they don't handle it in gold. Or at least not for me. TradingView doesn't give me the gold volume, I guess, because, well, gold never stops being sold. Basically, no. I mean, it's not like other stocks like the Nasdaq, which is just New York, but here gold keeps being traded all day long. All the countries keep selling gold, so the price is fluctuating not just because of the United States, but also in Asia, Europe, and so on. So the volume isn't handled the same way there, right? Well, I don't know if maybe you have another explanation for why the volume looks like that, he says. Huh? Peace for all, says Tony. How have you been, Tony? All the way to Spain, and may this new year be spectacular. Happy New Year. Thank you very much. Greetings to Spain. Very good, huh? When the dollar goes down, gold goes up, says Celestial. Hey, huh? Gold? The dollar has a slight increase right now. Very slight, but it is going up. Let's see how it goes. In our case, it's returning to 18 pesos, right? Let's see, but good point. Yes, it has a kind of balance there, so to speak, right? Well, hey, that's it. I'll say goodbye now. Have an excellent day. I didn't think I'd be on another broadcast so soon. We were already coming to another broadcast, but, well, that's how the news is, right? Now, whenever it comes out, we have to talk about it. And well, right? Or as fast as possible, right? That's what we're doing, going as fast as we can. And is it normal to take profits when it has gone up so much? Does it need that? I agree, that's normal. That's what I've been waiting for a while now, right? That there's a bigger profit taking. But this little truth, I mean, do you think there will be some profit taking and then the institutional investors will stay there and keep growing? That's the big question. And you're right, especially in gold. If we look at what Verdadarin says, look, you can see this is the profit taking. No, not from the institution, not from the country, but from the investors. No, the investor said, hey, all of this has already gone up, let me sell, and the price drops, right? And later on they might buy again, right? But, well, the countries and the central banks and the institutions, the funds, well, they might buy right now, but they're going to sell in 10 years or in 15 or in 20. I mean, they have very long-term plans. So the ones who take profits, let's say intra-weekly or intra-monthly or something like that, they say, I invested in September and already have a profit, or I invested in March and made a good profit. Should I take my profit now? And that's how it is. Well, that's just how it is. But those who are in it for the long term keep the price high, so those who are in it for the long term might actually be buying here. They're going to say, look, they calculate when there's going to be a correction. No, well, the correction is going to come around here. Well, then buy here too and place more sell orders in this whole area, right? Well, let's do that too. Since all of this is their calculations, but they're not exact either, right? There could be some there, and the green investors are on vacation, says Vadari. Look, there it is. Well, yes, there are probably many on vacation, he says. Excuse me, I don't eat out. If I order a pizza, they don't bring me pizza. If I order a steak, they bring me grilled meat. Of course I was right by the chefs, huh? They were experts in preparation. How? Carlos, excuse me, I don't eat out, huh? So, do you eat inside the house? Is everything good for the kitchen? Or what's the deal? Sorry. Carlos says hello again here. He says thank you very much. Greetings. Very good, Fidel. Thank you so much. Big greetings. Well, we'll be back later if it's worth it, so we'll come back. Big greetings. See you later. Let's see how things go with Atlas. I think we mentioned it on the other channel, I imagine. Not me, over there on Pepe Noticias. We'll talk about it later. Well then, a hug. See you, huh? See you later.
Thank you for joining us. You are on the best Spanish language news show on the internet. This
is
PP Live. We analyze the intense truth and unusual reality with a global focus. Don't miss out. Join the PP Live channel, your main source, Pepe Alen from Astrid Capon. Journalism, love, and a lot of passion. Turn on the alert. Don't lose track. See you next time. Roll call PP Live. Roll call PP Live. Roll call PP